great wrestling match can be the defining moment of a performer's career, as it has the power to stay in fans' minds forever. A classic encounter between two wrestlers will naturally leave the audience wanting more, but this is not always the thing to hope for. A sequel may end up being just as good or even better than the first. The movies look no further than The Dark Knight, but it also risks embarrassment by comparison, and also, to stick with movies, look at Cars 2. Unfortunately, there are countless examples of matches not reaching the same level a second time around, which is always a shame. Welcome to Honor Wrestling Club, and in today's video we're counting down 10 classic wrestling matches that have a terrible sequel. Welcome to the club. In number 10, we have Hulk Hogan vs Andre the Giant, as the two legends fought to a DQ, with their WrestleMania 4 outing being far less memorable. The legendary main event of WrestleMania 3 was by no means a technical classic, but it didn't need to be. It showcased WWE's brand of sports entertainment operating at its best, as the immovable object and the irresistible force. Hulk Hogan and Andre the Giant fought for the WWE Championship in front of 78,000 people, or 93,000 depending on who you ask, with the former performing an unforgettable body slam on the latter in the original WrestleMania moment. What is often forgotten about, though, is that both men faced each other at the following year's event, which came to a disappointing double disqualification, despite pretty much the entire marketing for the show just bigging up this match. The WWE Championship was won by Randy Savage later in the night, which does make people forget about this booking decision, but it was a stark contrast to the showdown Andre and Hogan had only a year earlier, and it was done just to eliminate the two favourites from the tournament and give heel Ted DiBiase a bye into the final. In number 9, we have Kenny Omega vs Jon Moxley in their exploding barbed wire death match, which was a dud. Otherwise, though, the two had fantastic chemistry and put together some fantastic matches. At Winter is Coming 2022, Kenny Omega defeated Jon Moxley for the AEW Championship. It was not only a great match, but also a shocking angle that saw the challenger turn heel. Kenny was immediately portrayed as a top heel in the company, whilst fans awaited the retribution that would surely follow at the hands of the scorned Moxley. AEW went big for the rematch at Revolution 2021, promoting an exploding barbed wire death match between the two in the main event. Whilst the match itself was actually quite good, the dud ending, where there were hardly any explosions, severely undercut the tone that AEW was trying to create, and overshadowed not only the rest of the match and the rest of the pay-per-view, but also every other match Kenny Omega and Jon Moxley would have. Which is a shame, and it's probably the second most known ending in AEW behind the All Out debuts. Anyway, in number 8, we have Bret Hart when he wrestled Kevin Nash in WCW, as the Hitman and Diesel had great matches in WWE. Throughout their time in WWE during the mid-90s, Bret Hart and Kevin Nash had a number of matches that were creative and exciting. The best possible combination. The former Diesel would do his best work with the Hitman before jumping over to WCW in 1996. Hart would later reunite with Nash in WCW, in controversial circumstances surrounding a little-known incident as the Montreal Screwjob. I'm surprised you've heard of it. Hart joining Nash in WCW led to an eventual match between the pair on Nitro in 2000. The match was awful on a number of different levels, as the interference-ridden disaster would also be one of Bret's last matches due to the brain injury he had suffered at the hands of Goldberg. In number 7, we have Becky Lynch vs Charlotte Flair, as they fought one time too many, as their match at Fastlane 2019 was incredibly disappointing. Becky Lynch and Charlotte Flair have had a dozen single matches together in WWE, but their best efforts came when the former was transitioning into the man character in 2018. At the Evolution event that year, Becky and Charlotte had a classic last woman standing match in the semi-main event that cemented the rivalry as being one of the best of that year. This match probably should have main evented over Ronda Rousey versus Nikki Bella, as this was incredible, and that match wasn't. But anyway, back to Becky and Charlotte. Their next singles bout was far more disappointing though, as it ended up being more of an angle to set up the main event of WrestleMania 35 than a match. The two fought at Fastlane 2019, but Charlotte got herself disqualified after a few minutes in what was a relatively pointless addition to the card. In number 6 we have Stadium Stampede 2, that couldn't repeat the trick of the first match, which was incredible during the pandemic. The wrestling world was scrambling to figure out how to operate under COVID restrictions in 2020. This meant that fans were not able to be in attendance for the shows. AEW had by far the best answer to the new conditions when it produced the Stadium Stampede between the Elite and the Inner Circle at Double or Nothing that year. Naturally, AEW attempted to repeat this masterstroke the following year, but the result was a greatly diminished one. The Inner Circle and the Pinnacle attempted to recapture the magic of the first Stadium Stampede, but it just could not reach the same heights. In number 6, we have Adam Cole and Johnny Gargano, who jumped the gun, and their first two matches were genuinely fantastic. By 2019, NXT takeovers had long become the most anticipated event of the wrestling year, as guaranteed was a high bar of match quality. Adam Cole and Johnny Gargano showed this off through their twin main events at both TakeOver New York and an incredible 2 out of 3 falls match, and at TakeOver 25 in a fantastic singles match, which saw them trade the NXT Championship back and forth. Cole and Gargano would go for a third classic at NXT TakeOver Toronto in a 2 out of 3 falls match, more of a 3 stages of hell. However, this would end up exposing the brand's worst habits. The 3 stages of hell inspired match showed how melodrama and excess had crept into Triple H's booking, which would become a trend that would ultimately bring an end to NXT's black and gold era. In number 5, we have Hulk Hogan and The Warrior going again in WCW, and their match at WrestleMania 6 was immeasurably better. Much like Hulk Hogan's match with Andre the Giant at WrestleMania 3, the Hulkster had a classic spectacle of a bout against the Ultimate Warrior at WrestleMania 6 in 1990, in what was seen as a torch-passing match, with Warrior beating Hogan to win the WWE Championship in epic fashion, beating Hogan clean for the first time in a while. When the two faced each other 8 years later at Halloween Havoc in WCW, the results of that match were far worse than fans could have possibly imagined. Hollywood Hogan and The Warrior had a languid and disappointing match at Halloween Havoc 1998, showing that they probably should have left their past behind, and this match literally existed so Hogan could get his win back, as WCW saw an enormous pile of money they could set on fire. In number 4, we have Shawn Michaels and Triple H slowing it down, as their first match was great, but the rest were not. Shawn Michaels returning against Triple H at SummerSlam 2002 is one of the most revered classics in the history of SummerSlam, getting a podium finish in most people's ranking of SummerSlam bouts. This showed what an unsanctioned match really should look like, and has only really been matched by Johnny Gargano vs Tommaso Ciampa at TakeOver New Orleans. The two friends looked like they'd been planning it out for the 4 years HBK had been away from the ring, and it immediately reminded fans of what they had been missing. The two members of D-Generation X would then have 3 awful matches, one at Armageddon 2002, one at Bad Blood 2004, and one at Taboo Tuesday 2004. Michaels and Triple H became far too self-indulgent in these later showings, having boring epics filled with lengthy selling sequences that were trying to evoke a sense of drama that did not seem genuine. In number 3, we have one final beat which epitomised NXT's downfall, as this cinematic match was far too self-indulgent. Speaking of melodrama, there has never been a more egregious example of wrestlers taking things too far than Johnny Gargano and Tommaso Ciampa's one final beat. The two had a lengthy feud in 2018 that was very well received at the time by fans and critics alike, but their animosities would continue into early 2020, leading to the ill-advised cinematic match. One final beat resembled a poorly acted action movie with a theatrical tone not befitting the performers at all. It perfectly resembled how NXT had gone beyond having well-worked matches, aiming for cinema instead. It recontextualized many of the great matches that the brand had become known for, as excess and melodrama had slowly been infesting NXT for years. In at number 2, we have The Rock, who went Hollywood against Hulk Hogan, and the two fought less than a year after their WrestleMania 18 classic. One of the more fondly remembered dream matches of all time occurred at WrestleMania 18, when The Rock and Hogan stole the show. Although, that Undertaker-Ric Flair match is very, very good and worth checking out. The two had an epic encounter befitting of the grandest stage of them all, complete with a memorable improvisation where the two flipped the heel-face dynamic thanks to Toronto, turning Rock heel and Hogan massively face. It's one of the more remember this happened matches in wrestling history, that the two would face off a year later in No Way Out 2003. By this point, Hogan was back to being his usual red and yellow self, whilst The Rock had gone Hollywood. The best Rock from a promo standpoint, if let's be honest, but in ring still not great. Despite the character shift though, their second match completely failed to deliver, acting as more of an angle for Hogan to take on Mr. McMahon at WrestleMania 19. And there you have it, there's our list. So what did you think? Be sure to let me know in the comments down below. What is your favourite match that had a really disappointing sequel? Be sure to let me know in the comments down below. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up, click the like, the share button, the subscribe button, and the notification bell to make sure you never miss out on any of the fun content we make here at Honor Wrestling Club. Be sure to check out our other videos. Go on, you'll enjoy them. I know you will. That's all for now, so I'd just like to thank you for watching, and welcome to the club. See ya!